Welcome back to the Veteran Teacher Files. I'm your host, the Dragon Lady. And if you're new here, welcome. Pull up a chair, grab a coffee, or a wine. I don't judge. Get comfortable. Today we're talking about the question that every non-teacher loves to throw at us. So what do you do all summer? And look, I get it. From the outside, it looks like we just disappear for 2.5 months and reappear magically refreshed in September. But let me tell you, summer for teachers is anything but empty. At least it has been for me. So today I'm pulling back the curtain on my own summers across the different seasons of my own career. And trust me, it gets interesting. We're talking about budget travel through Latin America, flipping burgers at a zoo, handling scorpions, yes, scorpions, and finally, after all these years, learning to just be still. Let's get into it. Okay, so first things first. When I was in my 20s, I was a teacher with a lot of time and very little money. And if you know anything about that combination, you know it can either make you miserable or make you creative. I chose creative. I didn't have kids, I wasn't tied down, and I wasn't about to spend my summer sitting in my apartment watching the walls. So I traveled on a budget. And I'm not talking Cabo or Paris. I'm talking get your Kelty backpack and figure it out kind of travel. I wasn't flying solo either. I had a travel partner, another soon-to-be teacher who understood the assignment. But we were definitely not doing anything fancy. We made it to Colombia. I danced on a jetty. Just music, water, stars. I ate the best ceviche of my life in Santa Marta, the kind of meal that you can remember 20 years later. I did a bus tour through 9 states in Mexico, 9 states on a bus, which sounds either incredibly adventurous or completely chaotic, depending on your personality. For me, it was both. And somewhere on that journey, we made it to the beaches of San Blas. And if you know San Blas, it's magical. That's the only word for it. I loved every minute of it. These weren't fancy trips, but they were real. And they're mine. And those experiences gave me something that no resort ever could. Stories, perspective, and a pretty solid tolerance for the unexpected, which, if you're a teacher, is basically a job requirement. By the time I hit my 30s, something had shifted. I didn't need adventure as much as I needed a break from being responsible. You know what I mean? All year long, I'm the teacher. I'm the one making the decisions, managing the behavior, communicating with the parents, running a classroom. It's a lot. So an opportunity came up to work at a local zoo in the kitchen, and I jumped on that opportunity. And I mean the kitchen. I was part of the kitchen staff, flipping burgers, dipping fries, clocking in, clocking out, and honestly, it was glorious. There is something deeply freeing about being anonymous at work. Nobody needed anything from me. Nobody was raising their hand. I wasn't anybody's teacher. I was just a worker. And after 10 months of being on all the time, that felt like a vacation in itself. But here's the thing. You can't take the teacher out of the classroom. Hold on. Let me say that again. You can take the teacher out of the classroom, but you can't take the classroom out of the teacher. My teacher voice was starting to slip out. Moving the line along, explaining kids' meals. I don't know, I guess I just have a certain way of doing things. Students would show up at the zoo for field trips in the summer and, well, staff started to notice. They figured out that I was a teacher, and apparently, I guess I gave off enough of a decent teacher vibe that they actually asked me to interview for their zoo education team. So I interviewed, and I guess you could say I blew the alligator out of the water. So I joined the zoo education team, and this was something entirely different. The team was made up of zookeepers, intelligent, passionate women. There was one guy. He doesn't count. These women knew their animals inside and out. Enrichment, training, nutrition, behavior, they were experts. And they had a great education program already in place. What they didn't have was the classroom structure, the scaffolding, the things that make learning accessible for all kinds of kids, not just the ones who come in already engaged. That's where I came in. I brought in visual schedules, predictable routines, the small things, the teacher things that make a big difference for the students with different learning needs. And together, we made their already great program even better. They brought the animal expertise. I brought the pedagogy. It worked. And then I got to go behind the scenes. I was trained to handle blue-tongued skinks, ball pythons, scorpions. I went behind the enclosures for ring-tailed lemurs. I trained chickens and goats. I spent 8 summers in total at that zoo. And honestly, it was some of the most joyful work I've ever done. Because here's the thing. I was still teaching. I was still doing what I love. But every single day felt like a field trip. And not one that I was actually in charge of. Just, that energy, that wonder, that anything can happen feeling. Imagine having that every single day for your summer. It was a sweet spot. And then there were the people. I have to talk about the people. Working on that zoo education team made the summer fly by. I made some lifelong friends. We had this whole vibe going on. We had this funky sock Friday. We had our funky visors. We had our funky earrings. We were just functified and having the time of our lives doing it. There was this one woman, I like to call her the bird lady, and she now lives up in Seattle. But every time I see the phrase, happier than a bird with a French fry, she's my person. That phrase is her. She is that phrase. If you know, you know. And then there's the other one. And we like to say, we met at camp. Because honestly, that's what it felt like. Summer camp for grown women who loved animals and wore funky earrings. She's still my friend on Instagram, and I get to follow along as she travels across the country, zoo by zoo, because she's an Air Force wife. And that's just the beautiful, adventurous life she's living. I love seeing her adventures pop up on my feed. 8 years at the zoo, and the animals were great. But the friendships, those are the things I'm going to carry with me the longest. Okay, now here's the lightning round, because teachers hustle. And before I get to where I am today, I have to give you some more information, because in between all those bigger chapters, there were a lot of little other things that kept me busy. And they kept the lights on. So, bartending. Yep, I have poured drinks. I have made small talk with strangers at bars. It's not that different from teaching, honestly. If you're managing energy, reading the room, and making sure nobody else loses it. Bud tending. And before you clutch your pearls, this is California. It is legal. And it was a perfectly respectful job. Next question. Babysitting. Some of my own students, actually, which is a very specific kind of trust a parent places in you. And I took it very seriously. Paid surveys. Look, do not sleep on paid surveys. Every dollar counts in June. Beekeeping. I kept bees, y'all. I have done things with my summer that most people only see on a nature documentary. Grading LPAC exams. For those of you who don't know, the LPAC is the English Learner Proficiency Assessment for California, and grading those is real skilled work. Teachers get paid to score them, and it keeps your professional brain engaged while still being a summer gig. Proctoring exams, SATs, and others. Basically, getting paid to watch teenagers stress out, which, after a full school year, is something relaxing by comparison. And now I'm a podcaster, which means I have officially added media personality to the summer job list. So, the Dragon Lady has entered the chat, and she's not leaving. So these last few years have looked a little different. I have my administrative credential, and I've talked before on this podcast about teacher atrophy, about how skills fade when you don't use them. Leadership skills are no exception. So, I've been jumping in to help coordinate and oversee summer school. And I want to be clear, it is meaningful work. It matters. I'm growing and I'm staying sharp. But it doesn't carry the same joy I had when I was carefree. There's a weight to responsibility that doesn't go away just because it's July. When you're running something, you're always running something, even on the good days. I don't regret it, but I notice the difference. Here's something I haven't talked about much. When I was young and I had all that free time, no kids, no big responsibilities, I didn't always handle it with grace. I remember lying in my apartment late into the night watching square pegs because I had weeks and weeks stretching out in front of me with nothing to fill them. And my mind just wouldn't settle. I've always had an active brain. A lot of teachers do. And unstructured time, especially lots of it, can feel more uncomfortable than restful when you're wired that way. The zoo gave me something to do with that energy. Summer school gave me something to do when I was leading it. I've always needed something. But this summer is different. This summer, for this first time, and I don't know how long, I'm taking the summer off by choice. I have a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, and this is the summer the training wheels are coming off. For them, and honestly for me too. The last time I truly stopped was maternity leave, and that wasn't exactly a choice. This is. I'm in my mid-40s, and I'm still learning to appreciate the long days of summer. To let them be long. To not fill every hour. To just be present with my kids and trust that rest is not the same thing as wasting time. It's a work in progress, but I'm in it. So, my summer story? From broke adventurer to burger flipper to scorpion handler to administrator to a mom learning to slow down. 20 plus years of summers, and every single one taught me something. I think what I've learned is that rest looks different at every stage of life. And what you need from your summer at 25 is not what you need at 35, and definitely not what you need at 45. Give yourself permission to let it change. Now, I want to hear from you. Here's today's audience participation question. What do you do during the summer? And has that changed over the years? Are you a traveler? A worker? A Netflix and recharge type? Or are you, like me, still figuring it out? Drop your answers in the comments. And if you got something out of today's episode, please do me a favor. Follow the show, leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't already. It takes about 10 seconds, and it helps this little podcast more than you know. Every follow, every share, every review helps the Veteran Teacher Files reach more educators who need to hear that they are not alone. I'm the Dragon Lady. Thank you for being here. Now go enjoy your summer, whatever that looks like for you.